Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar. What's new in VAPS, Visual Advanced Production Scheduler, VPS, Visual Production Scheduler, and VJS, Visual Job Scheduler for Dynamics 365 Business Central. My name is Martin Karlovic. I'm the CEO and co-owner of NETRONIC Software, and I will run this webinar today for you to share what we have released actually in the last 2 months. Some housekeeping things first. You're all on mute, as you're most likely are familiar with when webinars. So if you have a question, then please use the GoToWebinar chat pane and type your question there. In case I'm doing demos, I might not see it immediately. Then I will answer it after the demo. In case I'm doing PowerPoint, I see a pop-up, and then I will most likely answer your question straight away. If I think the question is something that is better answered at the end of the call or the end of the webinar or via email, then I will clearly say this, then I will either ask you to wait until the end of the webinar, or I will also let you know that the question is whatever, too tough to answer it spontaneously in the webinar, and then I will send you an extensive email afterwards. Yeah, that's I think all I wanted to say with respect to housekeeping. I think there was another point I forgot. Anyway, this is my first webinar after the summer break, so I'm glad that you're back, that I'm back, and that we can start discussing visual scheduling again. So from the nature of this webinar, this will be a bit of PowerPoint and a bit of demo. What I will not do in this webinar to set the scenes and the expectation is I will not introduce the 3 products that I mentioned here on this slide, because this is not an introductory webinar. We also run them frequently, but this is a webinar in which I show you what is new. So I will show you the outcome of the recent developments, which means I suspect that you either know all products a bit so that you can understand what has been added, or that you kind of deduct what the products can do from what you see here if you see them first time. So if if this is your first kind of time that you see our products and that you hear about visual scheduling for Business Central, then please send me an email, martin.karlovic@netronic.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn so that we can set up a bespoke demo for you, as this is not an introduction to our products, but this is just talking about some of the things we have been doing recently. And talking about what we've been doing recently, like this is a slide that I pull up every quarter now in these events that shows a little bit of the track record of our releases. So with the VAPS, we are now on version 1.10. With VPS, so the production scheduler and the job scheduler, we are on version 1.15. So overall, you can see that we are shipping 1 release per quarter. So if you look at last year, we had April, July, October, December, then March. Same here, April, July, October, December, March. So on average, 1 per quarter. And then if you look at the last line, it actually says there's a version 1.15 and a version 1.15.1 for all 3 products. So for the visual production scheduler, for the visual job scheduler, and for the visual advanced production scheduler. And I will talk about this in a minute, because like at the end of last quarter, at the beginning of this quarter, we shipped the functional enhancements that we wanted to do last quarter. And then we decided to kind of split actually the 3rd quarter into 2 release cycles. So we decided to break a little bit our rhythm of quarterly releases, and we decided, okay, we make 1 release at the beginning of August. So it took us, I think, 5 weeks, and we said, okay, the remaining 8 to 9 weeks of the 3rd quarter, we will then again do something different. And whenever we release a new version, of course, we go back to Microsoft and send it to them for App Source recertification. So whatever we do complies with Microsoft and is available on App Source, and it's available for on-prem versions. And whenever you have an idea that could make our products better, then please share with us, because a lot of the things we also will discuss today actually are no requests or no ideas that were like born in some ivory tower, but they were feedback we got either directly from you or we got from you via you from your customers. So any feedback is really, any idea is more than welcome. I read every idea that I get. I get feedback on every idea, and we take every idea as an input to become better, and that's what we are here for. So let's talk a little bit about splitting or talking about 2 releases now, and I want to focus, or I want to start with talking a little bit of what we shipped in August and then showing what we shipped in July. So we had the August release, and with the August release, what we basically said is that for 1 month, and in the end it was a little bit more than 1 month, so it was like between 5 to 6 weeks, but for 1 month we want to have all developers to focus more or less to 100% on performance. So we said now it is time. There's some summer break. Some people were on vacation, some not, but we saw also kind of less immediate requests from our customers. There was like a little bit of summer silence, as we all know, and we decided, okay, let's use this summer silence for us to take some time and to revisit, I would not say every aspect of the 3 products, but to revisit a lot of aspects of the product to kind of find ankles, find hooks to make the products in the end faster. So like with what we shipped in August, it had the internal name, this will be the performance release. And I will share some results of the performance release going forward. But if we talk about performance, I think we should also talk about what does performance mean. And we had a lot of discussion about this, because from time to time, of course, we got the feedback, whatever, the VAPS is slow, or this product is slow, or the VJS is slow when I do this and this and this. And so we before we did actually the performance release in August, we spent some time in July for us to kind of discuss what we understand when we talk about performance. And then we also started to kind of break this down into sub-performance segments so that we can better and more targeted research for like things where we can actually, by changing our code, increase the performance. And so first of all, I think we should talk about what is the performance experience. So when I am a user of the visual scheduler, then I experience, I think, performance in 3 different meta cases. And the one is, how long does it take to load or reload the visual scheduler, right? I press a button, say show whatever, show visual scheduler, and then I need to wait. And or when I have it loaded and I say, okay, reload because I want to fetch some new business central data, then this is basically the same. It is like getting data into the visual scheduler, so loading, right? This is one thing. Then when I have the scheduler open, then I do things with it, and we call it like the update performance. And this could be the interaction. So when I move something from here to there, this can be scrolling, but this can be also switching from between the views, right? I have the capacity view open. I want to go to the production order view, took some time. I have in the VAPS one color scheme open and go to the other. We have to update the visualization. And so how long does it take? And then when I'm done with my scheduling work, of course, I save or I publish depending on what product this is. And this can also take some time. And so we said, okay, these are the categories we want to look at. And with this release, we kind of found with different product, different options kind of to focus on first. So we will definitively repeat this 1 month, all developers 100% focus on performance exercise, maybe end of this year, beginning of next year. So this will be something we will do on a repeated, ongoing way. What is also interesting is when we talk about the load or the reload performance, we actually thought that like loading, and we kind of also rebuild a little bit our products internally, that we could divide the loading into 4 phases, right? So when you load a visual scheduler, what happens is first, we need to read the data from Business Central that we need for visualization, right? So you define whatever time range that you want to look at, and you say, okay, I want to look at production orders, and maybe you have a filter on some work centers or on some whatever item numbers or whatever. So by some filtering, you determine what to read. And then first we need to read this data, right? And reading data from Business Central takes time. And reading a lot of data from Business Central can take more time. Then once we have the data, we need to prepare it for the visualization. So what does this mean? Well, in the VAPS, actually, because we have an own scheduler, we have to build the schedule, right? We need to calculate which operation and which production order will sit where, and all the stuff. Then once you have the data prepared, then we need to send it from Business Central to the client. So we need to send it from Business Central to our control add-in where we do the visualization. And then once the data has arrived in the client, then we can also ask ourselves, hey, how fast are we creating the visualization, or how fast are we rendering the data so that you can see something on the screen? And you see, and we looked into the other things, into update and to save in the same way. So this is just an example, so that we say, okay, we not just should look at loading to make it quicker, but we should ask our question, like how fast and how good are we in reading from Business Central? How good are we in preparing? How fast are we here? How fast does the data arrive in Business Central? And then how quickly do we render? And we look into all of this, and I just wanted to share with you some results of the efforts, like all our Business Central developers with almost, with 1 month, almost 100% focus on performance. So in general, we found some areas, especially in this part, how fast are we reading the Business Central data for visualization. We found for all products something that in this part of the process we could do better. And it turned out that we did something in the, well, not optimal way before, that typically did not have a big impact when the data amount was manageable. But it turned into a problem the bigger the data volume became. So actually this part of the loading has been accelerated by far, and it contributes to, like, it is exponentially. So the more data you have in Business Central, the more performance gains were achieved in the process of reading data from Business Central. So the more production order lines you have, the more job planning lines you have, the better the performance increase there. This is general. This is for all 3 products. And let's specify things a little bit more. In the VAPS, we looked at the sample data with roughly 1,000 production order rolling, so with 1,000 operations, and we could increase the load performance by 10%. We will see figure later on for the VAPS with more data, where the performance increase was higher, so 10% is not that high. But once the data is there, now working with it will become much faster, because in the VAPS we have all these color schemes, right? You can switch from the availability view to the progress view, from the progress view to the production order view with the production specific colors. Then you can use a color scheme that shows you the production orders by status, and so on and so forth. And we could really increase this performance with changing the color views, which you do every time, by 80%. So what took some time to wait before now is really super fast. And this is something we are extremely proud of, that once you have the data in the visualization, it becomes much faster, much faster, 80% increase in speed, much faster to deal with. With the VPS, we have 2 bigger sample databases. So we have one sample database with 5,500 production order routing lines, and we achieved here a 44% performance increase, which kind of highlights this point, that the performance gains increase with increasing number of data, and it was like 32% performance increase with like roughly half amount of production order lines. Then with the VPS, it is important from time to time to reload the data. So once you have it open, to reload, and we have some customers who really do this extensively, and here we not only benefit from the load performance, but we could also make some more tweaks in terms of identifying those objects that we would not need to reload again because they have been loaded already and didn't change in Business Central, so we don't need to reload them. So here we benefit from the improved load performance plus better handling of the data. So we have 54% performance increase in the larger sample database and 42% in the smaller one. And then also, when you have a lot of production or routing lines with reservations, saving has become faster. I don't have data here, but you also can experience and you can feel this when you work with the product. With the VJS, we have a sample data with 2,400 job planning lines coming from 100 jobs with almost 100 resources. And there, the load performance also increased by 35%. So across the products, we got really like tangible results, tangible performance results by having the team more or less 100% focused on this one topic, performance. And I said these results are really encouraging, and these results also tell us that it is worth from time to time, like taking the team out of the race of coming up with new feature every time, but say, okay, now here is one topic, here's one performance, take a deep dive, come up with ideas. And if you have ideas, implement, then measure. If it's better, then keep it in the product. If it's not better, then go back to where you were before and then test the new idea. And so this is definitively something, as I said, we will repeat, most likely not this year, but I can see us repeating this maybe beginning of next year again, because I'm pretty sure you and your customers will definitively appreciate this. And then with this is what we shipped in August, and these are the version 1.10.11 for the VAPS and the version 1.15.11 for VPS and VJS. So if you don't have these versions installed, do it now, and you will see an immediate impact. Of course, we follow our release policy, so these new versions are available for Business Central 18, 19, and 20, because we only do new developments for the latest version of Business Central. We try to support the previous two versions, which successfully happened in this case. So the version 1.10.1 for the VAPS and 1.15 for VJS and VPS are available for Business Central 18, 19, 20. So if you are on these versions, then make sure you update your environment or you update your customer's environment pretty soon, because then they will experience this, and this is like tangible value. I see a question. No, I need to find it. So no, that was not a question, but a hand raise. Let me see. Here, no question, just a hand raise. So if you have a question, type it into the GoToWebinar chat pane, please. Then I can read it and answer it. So now to what we shipped in. Now to what we shipped in June/July, and I want to start with the VJS. So in general, of course, we do some housekeeping, some code cleaning, some bug fixing. In some of the cases, we had really an extensive list of bugs that we found, but also that you found. So we really, with the June release, did a lot of stabilization, especially in the VAPS area. Then with the VJS, we actually came across an issue that, and now I see there is a question. Sorry, I didn't get the BC versions for which this version will be available. So the latest versions are available for Business Central 18, 19, and 20. Typically, when we do new developments, we do it like Microsoft, that we only support the current Business Central version, which is 20, but we also try to support the previous two versions, which is 19 and 18. In the current case, this happened without any issues. So the new versions of our product are available for Business Central 18, 19, and 20. So with the VJS, We improved the handling of operation whose start or end date is outside the defined time frame, and I will show you what this means. And we added a vertical line at the end date of the currently selected job. So with this, before we go into the production schedulers, let's have a look what this means, what we added to the VJS. So I'm pretty sure I need to log into my database again. Yes. And then I'm opening the VJS, which is the visual job scheduler. So it shows us it shows us jobs with their job planning lines, with their job tasks, and with their with their job planning, and also with the resource allocation. So here, in my case, with the work date, someone in beginning February 21, I see I have a bunch of jobs. Some of them are quoted, some of them are open. And this is when they are scheduled to happen. So let's look at the Elkhorn Airport job. I do a double click on this. So I don't have a start date here, but I have an end date that tells me that this job should be finished by the 6th of May 21. I see a lot of job tasks. I see a lot of job planning, job tasks, and then I can drill down into the job planning lines. So when we said we now have a vertical line at the end of the currently selected job, then this means if I click on a job, that you see this is the job ending date now. So now you might say, okay, this is trivial, because if I have a job like this, then I see from this bar the end date. However, I can drill down into the job, right? And let me do it like this first. I can drill down into the job, and then I see all my job tasks. And also from here, this line doesn't make sense because I still see the end of the job. But then I start further drill down. I drill down into the subtasks, and then at some point of time, I want to drill into the whole job so that I have all job tasks and all job planning line open. And then if I like scroll down, then at some point of time, I don't see the overall job bar anymore. And then with this line, I still see when this overall job is due. And here I see, okay, I'm finishing in time. Likewise, we have something in the visual job scheduler that we call the resource view, where we don't look at the job planning lines, or where we don't look at one job per line here and one job planning line per line here, but where we look at what the resources are doing. So you see I have, let me take this one here. I have this job planning line, which is in week 8 assigned to John. And if I want to see what John is doing in this week as well, then I can say on right mouse click, show in resource view. Then we switch to the resource view, and then I see everything that John is doing. And as I have this yellow job selected, I see, okay, the job ending date for this job is here in week 18. If I switch now here in this view to this purple job, then you see the job ending line moved over here because the job ending line is later. If I then say, okay, let's check if I can move whatever this job planning line, and I see what type of flexibility I have and when the overall job is. So this is the one thing that we did. The other thing is a little bit more trickier, and I want to go back to the job view again. And I have now a very simplistic example. This is this job 150. This job 150 just has one job planning line. It says, okay, I need Mark. All right, this is how Business Central does it. I need Mark on the 10th of February for 40 hours. And we say, okay, as Mark has an 8 hours calendar, we spread this across 5 working days. So the load of 40 hours is, and we can nicely see this actually here in the resource view. There is Mark. You can see the histogram, and these 40 hours is 8 hours on this Wednesday, 8 hours on the Thursday, 8 hours on Friday, 8 hours on Monday, 8 hours on Tuesday, right? So we distribute this across these days. So now there might be cases, and here this is actually not the case because this is in the beginning of my loaded time frame, right? But imagine something like this could be at the end of the loaded time frame. And then in the past, we showed the data as it is in Business Central. So if this would be like, if the the end of this job planning line would have been outside the loaded time frame, then we would have showed the 40 in the beginning of the bar and then indicating a huge resource overload here, because obviously if you work 8 hours a day, you can't complete a 40 hours task in one day. So we actually now change this. So let me change the view here and load only until the 12th of February, so we don't see the end of this job anymore. So let me just do this. I go here and under user setup, I say, okay, I want to only see it until the 12th of February. And then I reload the data. And then look, what happened here is we have this job planning line now dashed, and we have 8 hours here, 8 hours here, and 8 hours here. So this dashed job planning line now gives us the information, hey, actually the end of this job planning line got cropped by the time frame you loaded, and there will be more utilization needed after the loaded time frame. Same here, by the way, this got cropped as well. So these were the things, besides the performance increases and besides some housekeeping and some bug fixing we did to the VJS. So it's a performance increase. It is that we treat job planning lines that are not fully loaded, that we treat them different than before, and that we have this vertical line at the end of the job date. So now let me switch my environment here and get prepared for looking at the production schedulers in a minute. But before we look at the software, let me quickly introduce you what we did. So just hang on a second. So now let's go here, and now let's go back to the PowerPoint for a second. So we looked at the VJS, and now let's look at the production scheduling products, and we had a strong focus on the VAPS this time, and we will also have a focus on the VAPS with what we do in the remaining of August and September, but I will come into this in a minute. So we have two things that we added to both products. This is, we actually show a window in the load progress to show, or when loading the VPS and the VAPS, to show you where we are in the loading. And remember what I told you earlier is that we first need to read data from Business Central, then we need to prepare them for the visualization, then we send them to the client, and then we have to render them. And exactly these process phases are represented in this load progress info window, so that you, when opening the tool, you always see where you are in the loading process. And then we got the request that some of you recommend that your customers, or some customers, use actually comments on the production order routing line, so that whatever they send with these comments, some work instructions, either to the people who do the execution, or sometimes the person who creates the production order makes some comments as a note, for example, for the scheduler. And if whenever there is now a comment on the production order routing line in Business Central, we see, or we show a symbol on the production order routing line. So this is both in VPS and VAPS, and I will show in VAPS, but in the VPS it is the same. Then we actually added a new constraint that could be used for scheduling purposes, and we added it to the production order line, and to the production order routing line, it should say. And we could use this as a new restriction for scheduling. So we could say, okay, this production order, or this production order line, or this production order routing line should not, this makes me crazy, production order routing line level, sorry, that this production order line, production order routing should not start earlier than that particular date. Currently, you or your customers have to kind of feed this field or populate this field manually, but this date is open, or this field is open. So if you have some logic how you want to populate it, if you have some rules like, okay, my customers never want a production order to start 2 weeks earlier than the due date, then you can build this, right? You can build this logic. And when you create the production order from the due date, you build a little routine that then populates the VAPS early start date 2 weeks before this due date. And this can make a lot of sense, actually. And we'll talk about this in a minute in the demo. Then we make 2 enhancements on what we call the EMAT. So on the earliest material availability date allocation. So first of all, and this is also something that helps with performance. We recognize that when you have longer time frames and when you have a quite deep hierarchical production structure with a multi-level BOM and a zillion of items, then running the EMAT allocation calculation could take quite long. So now we actually can take this out of the VAPS in a way that the user does not need to run the EMAT allocation calculation, but you can port it to your job queue and then, for example, let it calculate every night so that in the morning when the production planner comes again, then we have fresh data on earliest material availability. Then we also can define a tolerance value on the item card so that, for example, if you have an item where the BOM says, okay, we need 10 units of this item to build this. And then you can say, okay, my EMAT tolerance is 10%. So if you only would have 9 components on stock, you already would start the production and this would not be shown as material is missing. This can be definitively useful in some cases, maybe not where you need dedicated items, but where you whatever mix liquids and where you have some tolerances also in your bill of material structures, then now we can take these tolerances into account when calculating the earliest material availability and then change the dates there accordingly. And then we made two things to better look at the data. You can show or hide non-working times that same as you can in the VPS. And actually, we added something new that we call a world view that allows you to faster navigate through especially complex schedules. And then last but not least, we refactored the handling of alternate routing sets. So in the VAPS, you can define alternate routing sets that you can say, okay, this production line can go to this machine center and that machine center, but it goes to the second machine center, then the machine runs 30% slower. And then we would take this into account when scheduling. We had some inconsistencies there. When you had one of these runtime or setup multipliers set to 0, then this could result into crazy, this could end up in crazy results. Or if you wouldn't set up any machine center in the alternate routing set with the routing, the setup and runtime factor of 1, then also we could have some crazy results. And in order to prevent these crazy results from happening, we refactored the way of how we handle these alternate routing sets. We had an ongoing discussion with the developers if this is a new feature or if this would be something, an improvement of an existing feature. But in the end, the consensus was the way we do it now is really much better than we did it before. So we put it as a new feature, but never mind, this is just a question of definition. So let's look at these things that we added to the VAPS and all these things that we added to VAPS and VPS. And with this, I go back to my presentation environment or my demo environment. I have the VAPS already here. So now I enter the VAPS area. And by the way, in the VAPS setup on general, there is now this thing, show symbol on comment. Typically, this is set to no to have an unchanged user experience if you upgrade from VAPS 1.9 to 1.10. But if you want to see a symbol, if there is a comment on a production or routing line, then switch this on. And then you enter the simulation area. As you know, with the VAPS, we can build multiple simulations, multiple versions of your schedule that you then can compare and then publish what is best. So now, first of all, I want to create quickly a new simulation. I say, okay, I only include firm, planned, and release production orders. I want to look a week back and 10 weeks in the future. No further filtering, and I want to see my data actually by production order status. So released production orders showing up in orange and firm plan production orders showing up in blue. So when I do this, we copy all the production order that meets this criteria into a separate table. And now from here, we can run it. And now I say view simulation. And in the minute I press view simulation, something new happens. And this is the load progress. So now I see, okay, we are reading the data from Business Central. Now we are processing the data. And you actually see what type of data we need. And now we're creating the simulation. So my data is not that big, but let me do this again. And now you saw it follows the 4 processes. And if you have hundreds or thousands of production orders and production order routing lines, this will take, of course, a little bit longer, but then you definitively and exactly know where in this process of viewing the simulation you are. And you also get an understanding of your structure, right? I have a couple of work center groups. I have 1,400 calendar entries in my simple sample data. I have 920 capacity need entries, and I have whatever, a couple of hundred operations here in the schedule. So we also, by loading this, we get, and you get a better feel not only where in the process of loading you are, but also what type of data get loaded. So this was the one thing. So the show the window of the load progress so that you see where you are. And then now as this is loaded, you see I have all my work center groups here, my work centers, my machine centers. We have the production orders here, and there's this production order here. It starts in drilling, goes to milling, turning, and then continues in sawing, welding, and whatever assembly. And then you see this operation here, and this operation has this little info symbol, right? And this tells me, okay, there on this production order routing line, which is like on milling and turning. So it's the 3rd one here in this production order. On this 3rd operation of this production order, there is a command. So now if I double click here, go to routing, go to the 3rd one, see related line comments, and here we go. There I see that there is a comment. And so now if I would add more comments to other production order routing lines, then we would see this symbol there. And I think this is really good use to show that there is some additional information in Business Central using standard Business Central functionality that might be needed for me as a scheduler, or information that I as a scheduler put, whatever, for the people who do the execution. So this is also something that is I think that is quite nice. So now you see I have loaded the schedule, and basically I have 3 areas here. I have a machining part, I have a finishing part, I have a subcontracting part, and I set those parts up with different calendars. So machining is 2 shift Monday to Friday. The quality control is 1 shift Monday to Friday. In the subcontracting, I set it up as like 24 times 5, so Monday to Friday, 12 hours a week, and so 24 hours a day. Sorry. And now you see there are some parts of this non-working time that we show in gray that is common to all my work and machine centers, right? And these are the weekends. So neither my subcontractors nor my finishing department nor my machining department works on the on Sunday and Saturday. So why showing this non-work time all the time, and hence consuming a lot of valuable space here on my screen? So if you not want to see it, then under action, view, not here, calendar, sorry, under calendar, hide non-working periods, then you see now we only see those non-work times that are specific to some work and machine centers, but we condense the view. We don't see any weekends anymore because this is non-work time on all my work centers and all my machine centers, and hence in left and right direction I get just more production orders on my screen, so I get a better visibility. If I want to see the weekends because they give me some visual structure and guide my view, then I can see show non-working periods, and then we see, like in this case, the weekends again. And this, in my case, it applies for the weekends, but in general, it applies for those work-free times that are common to all work and machine centers. Then let's talk about the earliest start date field that we have. So you see, I have a quite solid schedule here. So for all those of you who do not know the VAPS, everything that you see here on my drilling machines, on my milling machines, on the welding workplace, and so on, this is something I scheduled before, and this reflects my current production schedule. Those production orders that you see on the standby resource, these are the ones that I have to still to schedule as the production scheduler. So I see a lot of stuff on the standby resource. And now let's just, for the sake of this example, take the last production order that I have here on the standby resources. So obviously it is here on the standby resource because it was created from Business Central. Business Central created this production order either from a sales order or with running the planning worksheet and recognizing some demand from the demand forecast. And it tells me, okay, so the Business Central information is I need this production order, and I need this production order like by the end of week 11. And now this is how Business Central created it. And now I'm, as the production scheduler, have to put it to the schedule. And one option to put it to the schedule is to say, okay, I want to apply the routing. And if I say apply routing, we do a as soon as possible forward scheduling. So then from the work date, we look where we have the earliest available capacity, and hence we put it to the schedule from there. So if I say apply routing, you see it moves to here, and it consumes capacity in week 7 here and here, in week 8 here, in week 8 here, although we only would need it in week 11. So let me undo this. And this could be okay, but there could be also cases that users say, hey, I don't want to move this that far to the left, so I want to restrict this. And for this, we introduce something that we have the earliest start date. So let's say we just want to we want to have some flexibility. So maybe we say, okay, we should start with this at earliest in week 10, so at the 6th of March. So then let me open the production order, and then we can set an earliest start date on production order level, on production order line level, and also on the routing level. There is also an earliest start date. And I said on production order level, I said, okay, the earliest time that I want to start this is the 6th of March. Now the simulation is outdated because I have new scheduling relevant data. I quickly update this, and also this became quicker. And I see there's a question. Let me just finish this thought with the earliest start date, and then I come back to your question. So now I have an earliest start date here, and when I say, okay, apply routing, then we take this into account and we don't utilize capacity earlier than that. And this can give you actually a lot of flexibility, and I'm like tempted to run a separate webinar on this, because if now it is scheduled like this, and if you have customers, or if you work with reservation, if it's scheduled like this, you could publish it, and then you could create the purchase orders for the components based on this schedule, and then you would have a time frame on the schedule between the earliest start date and the original due date where you could move the production order without breaking any reservation. So that was quite a quick of a thought. So I think of running a separate webinar or doing a separate video on this, but overall, this earliest start date on the production order level, on the production order routing line level, and on the production order line level gives you a lot of options kind of to build a better schedule. So now I will look at the question, and then to come some more features. Okay, so now there is a huge question. Could you add an option to ignore reservation entries when displaying the links, blue lines between operations in the capacity view? We find that if we use sales order planning to create production orders, some of which have multiple production lines, when we kick an operation, the whole view turns into spaghetti of blue lines. I know we can disable display of links completely, but this isn't the best solution for us. Mark, thanks for the question. I know that depending on how Business Central is configured and how Business Central is built, we might have this spaghetti effect. So I suggest we set up a call later, and then you show me what you have, and I look at this, and then we try to figure out the best way forward, because this question is like not related to what is new. So I will definitely send you a message, and then we figure it out separately. So now back to what we did is talking about performance. There is actually, like I said, we made it faster to change the color view. So now I have the color view with my production order status. So the orange are blue, the orange are firm released, and the blues are firm plan. But I can change this, and I can say, okay, I know that in the VAPS we have something, the EMAT, the earliest material availability date, and with the EMAT we get information if I have scheduled something, although the material is not available. And this is then shown by colors: red, something is scheduled but the material is not available, and green, something is scheduled and the material is available at that point of time. And changing this color mode also with not that many data took a bit in the past. So now if I change it now, boom, it got changed, right? So now, and now I can go to, I say, okay, also we have a color mode that shows me late production orders. I can go there and go to the progress view, and it changes quickly. Let me change back now to the availability view. And now maybe I have a plan, and there could be a schedule that is much bigger than this. And then I want to spot like critical issues early. And of course, I could do now something like this, and then I would see that there are some production orders that are critical. But if I would have more work in machine centers, then definitively there would be some scrolling exercise here. And by the way, did you see, we saw those here that are red, but we didn't get this on this view. And in order to kind of navigate to the schedule faster and also identify potential issues earlier, we have added something that we call the world view. So go into view and then say show world view, opens up this thing here at the bottom. And this thing here at the bottom shows you like a really, really condensed version of your schedule, mirroring the colors you have on the top screen and showing you this red rectangle that shows you the part of the schedule that you currently look at. And the cool thing is you can use this red rectangle to navigate. So I see, hey, here is a cluster of red things. So obviously here are some production orders where I have issues with material. So now I take this here and move it to here. And then I'm exactly here where I have the cluster of my production orders that are red that indicate an issue to me. We cannot make this bigger here. It is a fixed. So this rectangle represents the original size of the screen here, but then we can take this to maneuver to the schedule faster. And of course, if I'm in the, for example, in the production order view, where I have a lot of production orders, I would say, okay, if there would be some late ones, then I could actually maneuver to this quite quickly from here. So I think this is actually a quite useful functionality to kind of quickly maneuver to areas in the schedule where you have an issue. So if I switch the view now, and I think to get the principle, go to the progress view, then it should have been updated here so that I see that there is something red here. I will send this as feedback to the developers, but there was an update issue. Maybe a small thing to fix, but the world view definitively is really cool to quickly maneuver and navigate through the schedule. So those are the things that I can show you here visually. Then I said we had two enhancements on the EMAT. So first of all, if I go to an item card and I could say, whatever, I take this one, just sample item. We have this EMAT tolerance percentage here on the item card in the item header. So if I would say the item tolerance percentage is 90%, then this means we could start producing any bomb if we just have 90% of the item available than what we have specified in the BOM. So if, like same example before, if the BOM says we need 10 units of this, if we have 9 on stock, then with an EMAT tolerance of 90, the EMAT would say the material is available. If you only would have 8 on stock, the EMAT would say this is not available. So by 0, by default, it's 0, but if it's a 90%, then it is just like I explained right now. And then the last thing that we have is we can call the EMAT allocation from the job queue. So now I'm here and my object type to run would be a code unit. The object ID to run, I would go here, and then somewhere I'm too lazy to scroll. You would say EMAT. Takes long. And then we would say this is the net VAPS given EMAT job queue. So we would take this code unit and then we would specify when we want to run this, when we would start this, and so on and so forth. So like every other job queue, so you can say, okay, if you work just Monday to Friday, you can say, okay, I want to run it every Monday. And if your production scheduler typically comes to the office, whatever, starts working at 8, you would run it at 5, and so that by 8 o'clock it's done, and then they have always current EMAT data without the production scheduler having the need to run an EMAT allocation manually. So right now, if you don't use the job queue, you have to say EMAT allocation and then clear data, calculate location. This can take quite a while. So we had case customer where this took an hour or even longer. And if it takes long with you, and if you also want to avoid that your scheduling people forget this, then put it to the job queue, and this makes it all very efficient. So these are the things, the performance plus the new features, these are the things that we shipped with the new version. So now the question always is, okay, this is great, but what is next? This is always also my question to the developers when we finish a new version. So let's talk about what is next. And we actually have quite an ambitious plan for the rest of this quarter, especially when it comes to the VAPS. So with the VAPS, we still have some, I would not say functional holes, but there are some settings in Business Central that you can make that we currently do not take into account with our forward finite capacity scheduling. And within like the rest of this quarter, we want to close these gaps any further. So I just give you an example. On Business Central, on the Machine Center, on the Work Center card, you can set a capacity of 3 or of 5 or of 8 or whatever. And whatever figure you put there, we currently ignore this. And we say, okay, the VAPS works with the assumption of finite capacity of 1. And this has been serving our customers quite well, but we also see some cases where, like especially on a work center where you don't want to add machine centers having a capacity of 5, like if this is a welding work center, they say, okay, on average I have 5 welders, so I put just 5 there, and then I want to go have 5 productioners going to this work center at the same point of time. These are some of the use cases we have been seeing, and so we said, okay, with the release we are doing towards the end of this quarter, beginning of next, we want to close some of these holes where you can do settings in Business Central and where we currently make assumptions with the VAPS, and we say, okay, we enhance our internal scheduling engine in a way that we can understand these figures that you put into Business Central, and namely in the VAPS, these are, and like for all products, and I will talk about later, for the VAPS going forward, we will considering the efficiency. This is something that you set on the Work and Machine Center card. We will consider the finite capacity, even if it's larger one. So if you have 5 welders and in a work center and you don't want to add 5 machine centers, then you put in 5 there. And then we make sure that there are no more 5 productioners running at the same point of time in this work center. On the routing, you can set concurrent capacity. So if you have like a capacity of 5, which means you have 5 welders there, and then you have a production order where you say, okay, this is the amount of time it takes, but on average, I want to have 2 welders working on it at the same time. Then you say, okay, this is concurrent capacity of 2. And right now, if there's concurrent capacity set, we always assume it is 1. Going forward, we will also understand this data and schedule accordingly. Then we continue to work on having the EMAT on routing line level via the routing link code. Right now, EMAT is available only on the production order line level. This is something that is on where we are working on since quite a while. It is really a giant thing of development, and there's some likelihood that we will conclude it by the end of September. Then in the VAPS, as of now, we have the opportunity or the possibility to change a started operation, that we just take it and make it longer. And we will also allow this for not yet started operations, always assuming that the quantity remains the same and the length of the runtime increases or decreases. We will come up with a data filter like you know from VPS and VJS, and we will also allow you to configure the table left-hand side like we have in the VPS. And then for all products, we will also make the table configuration multi-line capable. So this is really huge. This is our focus for this quarter. We will nevertheless come up with a really cool feature in VPS where we will like test this and then make some experiences here and then try to see what we can learn on the VPS to bring it to VPS. And this is that we can select multiple production orders or multiple operations at the same point of time and then move them in one go. So this is something I have already seen a very encouraging internal beta version. So I'm looking pretty forward to seeing it in the VPS and then potentially later on also in the VAPS. And then in the VJS, we will continue working on the refined handling of job planning lines that are moved outside the loaded time range. So what I showed you was the first step, but there are more steps to make. We will improve the highlighting of jobs that are late, and we will start working on introducing a new project task type that is called milestone, and that would work kind of comparable to what you would expect from a milestone, which is like an object that is totally missing in Business Central, but that many people need for planning their projects. So this is what we did in with the June, July, and also the performance release in August. I'm pretty confident that your customers will appreciate this, especially the performance enhancement. And there were also some pretty cool features added. And then I'm also looking forward to get my arms around in terms of internal testing of this functionality. So this is like the first 3 bullets are internally due very soon. So I want to play around with it. I want to test it, and then we will make it ready and hopefully ship it by the end of the quarter. So this is quite ambitious. So with ambitious plan, there are also some risk that they fail or that they do not land in time. But with ambitious plans, there is also the chance that they succeed, and then you typically make a major step forward. And in my point of view, this will be a really giant step forward. And looking at what's happening later this year, going to some of the events we're going to, I definitely want to have this. So I will keep you updated on this. We will also very soon announce the next webinars, and the next webinars will be less product specific, but more content specific. So I'm building a couple of use cases to share with you then. If you have any questions, ask them now, please, or send me an email, connect with me on LinkedIn and message me there. I'm really happy hearing from you. I'm very curious in your remarks. If you like what you saw, then also send me some nice words that I can share with the developers. They are always proud if they get good feedback from our partners and customers. If you think there are things that can be improved, share with me, and I will make sure that we work on the improvements. And if you have ideas, please also send to me. A lot of the things we are working on are things that came up from you or were like were identified in joint sessions we had with you and or your clients. And so please keep us challenging us, because this definitively makes us and our products better. And with this, thank you. I see there's a question. Somebody asking for, like Rick asking for a link to the recording. Yes, the webinar was recorded, and we will send the link tomorrow, latest on Friday. And so with this, there's no question. Thank you very much. Have a nice day, and see you soon in one of our webinars. Take care. Bye-bye.